All right. All right. Thanks, Chris, so much for that epic introduction. Welcome to BlockDown 3.0, Dovey. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you, Erhan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm loving the hat, by the way.
Yes, this is one of my favorite like Bitcoin swag, and I have like a lot of them.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, Dovey. So yeah, you're a founding partner of Primitive Ventures. You're also quite influential across a number of social medias in the West, specifically in Twitter. And I almost feel like you're very much kind of a voice, or like we as Westerners learn quite a lot about what's going on in China and blockchain and crypto from a few select Twitter influencers, and Dovey, you're definitely one of those that we follow closely. Obviously, your background speaks for itself. You've done some really amazing things in the space. You've been in there from a long time. You've got some great investments. And honestly, when I was diving into your background, I was just wondering, well, how did she do all this, in such a short amount of time? I mean, and it's quite intriguing, really, to see your journey from China and then moving to the US. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break up this fireside chat. We're going to start on your background story, Dovey, and we're going to go into a little bit of current affairs, talk about East meets West, which I'm sure you talk about all the time, a little bit of DeFi, and then talk about the future for blockchain technology and where you see that being in the future. So, okay, so let's just kick off from the beginning. So, we want to find out your background story, Dovey. I still don't think that people really know exactly your past and your history and how you kind of got to where you are today. So let's start from kind of your childhood growing up in China, and what was that like?
Yeah, so my childhood, so I was born and raised here in Guangzhou, China, and so it's like what considered as the one of the most westernized like province like here in mainland China, because it's kind of like connected to Hong Kong. And like say for instance, when I was like growing up, and like we have access to many of this like Hong Kong TV station, where many of the other mainlander and so they don't have access. And we actually even so like even during like primary school, and I think we are the first generation to start like learning English like in like a relatively early age. Like say for instance, I remember I start learning writing and like reading English and I think third grade. And for the rest of the kid like during my generation, and I think they start in around fifth or sixth grade, but anyway, so I think we are kind of like more westernized like during my upbringing. And my parents, so my dad is also was considered a first generation certified software engineer like here in mainland China. So I got my first computer I think age like the six. So basically I have like a photo that I sit on, and I sit on the bench and I basically press a keyboard, and then I was just like age 2, and I was pretty young. And so I think to many of my peers, and so I have a relatively better access like in general to the IT industry, or like just to IT, right? And I think the Guangdong province is also a very like magical land, and we have like the Tencent has a headquarters here, like the NetEase is like headquarters here, and then Huawei, Xiaomi, and so if you think about the current Chinese tech giants, and I would say like half of them. Half of them actually founded here. So I think just like around here, like there's like, I wouldn't say like a completely Silicon Valley like atmosphere, but like it's definitely much more apolitical comparing with like northern part of like China, because like Guangdong is 1,000 part of the mainland China, right? And so if you go all the way to north, and if you go to like Beijing, and then that is a very like like political like oriented type of like geolocation, I would say. So I think like the whole Guangdong, like the Cantonese, and so we are like Cantonese, so I can speak both like Mandarin and like Cantonese. And I think the Cantonese in general are very apolitical, are very like pragmatic. And most of my, so I did my undergrad here, and most of my undergrad like peer and most of my schoolmates, and many of them just go right straight to the industry or like have their own startup. And so it's very entrepreneurial as well, versus like many of the students and like college kids from like northern part of China, like say for instance, Peking University, they rather go to like grad school, like PhD, etc., and then or probably go to try to join the party and then try to be the party officer, like things like that. So I think the overall mentality are completely different, and we are more commercial driven. We are more entrepreneurial, like more like pragmatic. And so comparing what I consider as like the northern people. Yeah, so like that's my childhood, and I did my undergrad here in China, and I moved to US at the age of 20, and for my master's degree in Carnegie Mellon University, and then also in information system, and after that, and I moved to the Valley and spent about 4 years at eBay. During my eBay time, that's when I first So I knew about Bitcoin. I think I first heard about it like that is at 2011. So that is 2011 when I was still in Carnegie Mellon. And for like every individual Chinese citizen, we have a hard cap of like exchanging US dollar for like only 50,000 US dollar, right? And so my parents back in the day, my parents, they have hard time just getting my tuition out. And then when I first learned about Bitcoin, and I was pretty amazed by how liquid it can be just across the border, like because when I grew up and I consider everything can only circulate, like all the currency, all the money, what I consider as money can only circulate within the domestic financial environment. And so when I learned about Bitcoin, and I'm really amazed by just like purely by its global liquidity, because I think about that, right? Like global liquidity of a certain like value gonna lead to the mobility of the talent. So if my parents have hard time, so if the capital constraint is 5,000 US dollar per individual, then probably I wouldn't go out for my master degree, right? So because it's just impossible to put together all the tuition, because my parents has only the quota of like 10,000 US dollar like every year. So from that perspective, and I was pretty amazed by Bitcoin's global liquidity, and then is characteristic of being like a native internet currency. And that was like 2011. When the second time, and I had hard time. So then I had my time to be able to deep dive into Bitcoin. So that was during my eBay time. My manager back then like asking us to do a comparative analysis of all the other marketplaces. That's when I learned about Silk Road. And like Silk Road was considered as an opposite example of a marketplace, right? So because eBay has to be 100% compliant, like we have a lot of like a very detailed policy about what can be listed and like what cannot be listed. And then so a lot of this like trusted program type of thing too. So in order to boost the boost the overall like the order and just like the order of the entire marketplace. So because when you design a marketplace and you have to design something that both sides of the marketplace, both the seller and the buyer, so they have like a strong trust on, right? When you design a centralized marketplace. So Silk Road was considered a big no-no. And then and I take a look, and then so I realized, and like the transaction volume was pretty decent, and then purely based on this like internet native currency Bitcoin, and like that's when I realized Bitcoin is not a toy anymore. It is like not a gimmick, and people actually use it as like a medium of exchange. Yeah, and so like fast forward so like after eBay, so I joined a local VC firm, like where I cover like the investment areas such as marketplace, fintech, etc. So like anything related to what I consider like anything related to transactional based business model, right? Like there was a 2014, and so when we were still in this nuclear winter, like the crypto nuclear winter. So between 2014 and 2016 is like no Bitcoin but blockchain, and so like blockchain was under fintech, and so I spent a lot of time like researching about all this blockchain as a service company, and which is not interested at all because it's basically enterprise software company, right? Just I think about that. So like blockchain as a technology is very simple as a open source append-only encrypted like database management system, right? So if your business is running blockchain as a service, like there's like the business model itself and your future cash flow model is no different than other enterprise software companies. So but like during the crypto winter, quote unquote, like the nuclear winter, and that was the pretty hot thing. And I spent 2 years like digging into this blockchain as a service industry, and then so inevitably get to know a lot of like crypto native people as well. And one of them used to be my eBay product manager colleague, and so like who used to be the founder of Streamlab / Definity, and so that became my first like crypto related investment back in 2014, 2015. And and then fast forward, so like that is my journey into crypto, and I think that's like detailed enough.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Okay, no, so that's really interesting. So did you, as a young girl, or growing up in China, did you always plan to move to the US, or was that something that just happened?
Oh, so yeah, so I think like what triggers that, so like previously I have no idea about US at all, right? So I only read about US or just like watch American movie, and like that's pretty much it. And I still remember like 911, like the 911 moment. So because I discussed this with many of my American friends, and so a lot of American friends like asked me, oh, so what about 911? And so do you guys like, so is it like a big news to you guys, right? And I was just like mid school, and then so I remember like the 911 moment to us is just, it's not even a news to us, and it was like, okay, there's a bomb and that's it. So and I think the information is pretty cut off for us, and I think what triggers my just general plan and wants to see like the outside world is in, I think that's during the summer of 2009. So the summer of like 2009, and so in order to celebrate the 30th, so I think that is like the 30th anniversary of the official diplomatic relationship like between US and like China. And so there's like a official program between US State Department and the Chinese like the CCP. Basically they had this student leader exchange program, and so we as the Chinese student leader, like 30 of us, and then we basically spent a month in Washington DC, and so they also sent like 30 of them like stay a month. I think they stayed a month in like in the Beijing as well. So like that's when I really learned about the US history and learn about like US politics, and like I remember like during 2009, and US and China was still in this pretty harmonious relationship when it comes to like geopolitics, and then we visit the house and like talk to the politician, things like that. And then so I really learned a lot of this like core philosophy of the founding fathers of the US, and so like and and I realized, and it's a completely different value system and completely different and like philosophical system. And so there's a lot of things that can be complementary to the overall social system that I grew up. So I'm really curious like to learn more. Yeah, so, and I still remember like the first time that I think that's when I went to the University of Virginia, and so that was established by like Thomas Jefferson, and so I tried to learn like what Thomas Jefferson like, and then many of like his philosophy, and just during the like the founding history, and I really admire like his like visionary, and then also like Benjamin Franklin as well, like what I consider as the American version like Renaissance man, right? And so he's an inventor, like he's a politician, and he's like a media person, and yeah, so like it's pretty fascinating like history and like culture like to learn from. So yeah, so I think that's what intrigued me to actually go to US for my just for my grad school, and then later for my career. Yeah.
And do you think that like the kind of way of life the people in China live, it's very different way of life than you have in the West? Do you think like that kind of maybe kind of like made you more interested in Bitcoin, like the kind of values that underpin Bitcoin? Do you kind of consider yourself a little bit rebellious?
I think, well, yeah, when I met like whenever I met a new crypto founder, and I always ask them the same question, like, what is the most rebellious thing that you have done in your life? And I think based on the answer from that, and you can tell them apart. And I really don't believe, so I talk about crypto native projects, right? So not blockchain as a service. If you are a really crypto native founder, and then so you got to be you can't be an authoritarian like type of like personality, and then so that's why. And I think like if you ask yourself that question, and if your life is pretty standard, right? So like there's no deviation of your life, and I think you will have hard time to even just to adapt to like the whole industry, like just like the whole crypto universe. And so I consider myself as a pretty rebellious individual, especially in the Chinese culture. And so that's why. So I personally, I'm very pessimistic of. I can't tell for Korean and Japanese, but I think like East Asian in general. So the overall authoritarian, like the history, and basically leads to us. So it's about, and I think it's about the geo different. So because here is like everything is like agriculture driven, like for the past like thousands of years, right? And then when it comes to Europe, and it's more like you guys learn selling, and then so basically everything from like, and then like just like the glorious, like if you think about like the glorious, like the Europe, and like after, so and then just right after the like the dark, like the medieval age, and so all the glory like come after just like the great sailing thing, right? And so like because you cannot predict the weather on the ocean, right? So but like when it comes to agriculture, so it's all about being like stable, and it's all about how to predict the weather, like things like that. So and you need to, like, I think if I think about your ancestor and my ancestor, and my ancestor always just like, so they have a very routine life, right? So they just go out and just to farm the land, and then so they basically come back. And but your ancestor gonna fight on the ocean, like with all this like uncertainty and like things like that. And so and I think that leads to a completely different mindset. So like that's one part of it. And I think that like the other thing is like here, especially in China, like like back in the Qing dynasty, like the very early on, so it's like 2000 years ago, like back in the Qing dynasty, like the first king, like the first great king of like Qin Shi Huang, right? And so he basically unified all the language and currency. So like the unity is at the core of like, so it's basically in our DNA, right? And so, so I think that's why China is not so a lot of people consider China as a nation state, but I think China is more a civilization state. And then this civilization state basically self-evolved into a political system that fits its citizen really well. So it's like a mutual selection, yeah. And so I personally am pessimistic on the crypto founder like who are authoritarian and then but like who try to be a bandwagon saying, okay, I'm a crypto founder. And I think a lot of them deep inside they're authoritarian, but they just want to make a quick cash or like whatsoever and then be on the hype and then launching out a crypto project, and that's definitely like philosophically not ideal. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So I mean, look, you're obviously a very successful, female entrepreneur. You've achieved a lot so far in your career, and I'm sure you've still got a long way to go as well. What is it that drives you? Like, what do you think as an entrepreneur? Like, what kind of mindset do you have that really helps you got to where you are so far today?
I think so what drives me, I think my biggest driver so far is and I really just want to just so if you Baidu, so like Baidu is the Google equivalent here in China, right? And yeah. So I think in the future, the world gonna be more and more like departed, and so that's what we have seen, like especially like during this pandemic, and we have seen like all the political leaders, and like one thing we have consensus on, like even though we don't have consensus, so probably we can't agree on like where's the source of the virus, like things like that, but we can have consensus on we all deserve better government, and I think we all deserve like better like political leaders, and I think, yeah. So there's that one inevitable trend that is we are human being, and we will have harder and harder, like to agree on some consensus, right? So no matter like to the macro level of at the macro level from the commercial world, or like to the from the micro level in the business world, or to the macro level of the the world political world. And I think the modern politicians, their job is not to reach consensus. So if you think from that perspective, like Bitcoin is it's the most effective way like to reach consensus and like 100% without any doubt, right? So that's why a lot of Bitcoiners, they also deeply believe in math we trust. It is not about in God we trust, because when you say in God we trust, and my God gonna be different than your, so like my God gonna be different than your God, right? And so there will be conflict, but math, like there's no conflict in math. And like everything gonna be deterministic, like relatively deterministic. So I think in the future, like we human beings, we will have hard time like reaching consensus at any level. And when it comes to the future Bretton Woods meeting, so if you think about like, okay, like all the central bankers, like they have to sit together and then like talk about the world monetary system, and like it's kind of impossible for them to reach on a certain like the current fiat currency or like any sovereign currency or like any singular asset that they will reach the value, so they will reach the consensus on its value, right? And so I think like Bitcoin gonna be a great complementary like towards that. And it's an alternative monetary system. It's an alternative economic system that we're gonna build on top of on. So I think my core drive as a Bitcoiner or as a entrepreneur and try to drive the adoption of our crypto industry, so comes from here. And because I think it's the most effective and efficient way, like secure by math, and then helping us to reach consensus of value, and then also reduce uncertainty. And like, as you know, like the entropy of the whole universe always grow, right? And then so when it maxed out, and like the universe gonna explode. And then so at the individual is the same. And when our internal entropy of our whole just like biological system max out and we die, right? And so like that's why it's kind of hard to find any system that can keep the entropy low, that can keep its internal entropy low. And the Bitcoin mining system is also pretty amazing from like this perspective. The Bitcoin mining system basically keep its internal entropy stable by dumping the energy out of somewhere else. So that's why the Bitcoin proof of work is proof of useless work. So, and I think, so if you look deep down into the math of it, and then especially if you think about the information theory by the Klaus Shannon, and then so you will realize like how beautiful like the Bitcoin math is, and so it's like simply beautiful. So these are the fundamental thesis I have, and I think from just the economic, like from the economic level is, and I think in the future, like the Bitcoin gonna be the M0 of our of our crypto universe, and then on top of that, and then we're gonna have our own version of the M1 and then M2. So like that's why I don't like many like maximalists like saying, okay, Ethereum is like shitcoin scam, whatever. Ethereum is actually part of the M1 system. Ethereum is part of the M1 system for Bitcoin, and I think we already see that happening. If you see the WBTC right now, like the WBTC, like the total amount of WBTC right now is over 1 billion like US dollar, right? So the Ethereum is actually helping Bitcoin to be more interactive. And then on top of that, and then we can have our M2, and then all these like DeFi protocols, and then either lending or whatsoever. And then so those are all the M2 on top of this like M0, like the base currency, like the Bitcoin SD base currency. So like this is my economic mental model. So for the whole crypto assets, yeah. And so I think if you ask me what drives me is like, and I believe and like the Bitcoin gonna serve as a, not just as a store value, as a alternative plan. So for us to like, for the individual to go against all the fiat crisis, etc. And then also it can really build a economic on top of it, and it is not just like simply for some, like it will be mainstream 100%. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. And then so I think we just at the very start of the whole history, maybe just the first 3 minutes of the Big Bang.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So, I mean, look, Bitcoin's going to go through a ton of battles, I'm sure, over the next 10, 20 years even. And one of them, you could say right now really is the kind of launch of the digital yuan in China, which is kind of potentially being seen as a cryptocurrency per se, but obviously is one that's controlled by the state. So I recently read like about the airdrop that happened in China, right? They had $1.5 million of digital yuan airdropped, and I believe most of that's been spent. And I read an article in CoinDesk the other day that actually didn't go down that well in terms of like usability. So I just really wanted to get your insights into how the airdrop went, and really kind of what the response has been like so far for the digital yuan in China.
Right. So like the digital yuan, and So for the average Chinese citizen, like the digital yuan has, so most of them, like they have no idea that, okay, digital yuan is gonna be like cash replacement, and it's actually M0. And then so they don't have that economic background, like to understand it, to understand it like deeply. And most of them, they will consider as a simple method like of payment. And because like China has been in this like cashless society for already 5-6 years, and then so difference and my friends in like Shenzhen, so like whenever like they got airdrop, and so they just simply download the new wallet app, and so like there's nothing significant of that like assistance, like even though it's like a fiat. So even though it's a digital fiat, so I think like many of the Westerner, so because many of the Westerner, and they still have to rely on the other method of payment, like most of them like credit card, right? So they consider it as like a significant behavioral change. So there's no significant behavioral change. So like the change gonna be from the monetary policy management level. So because like this is so like comparing with Alipay or like WeChat Pay, like those are digitization of fiat. Those are not digital fiat. So like for any of this payment channel, so you will still have to connect to your like bank account, etc. Right? And so this time, so the digital yuan, and then so the purpose, like, and I think just like from CCP's perspective, and from the good side, and I think I have chat with some of this insider like working on the digital yuan, and I think that its intent are, and I think it's the original intent is not about, so it's not all about financial surveillance. Its original intent is, okay, now we have a pretty aging society, and say for instance in like Guangzhou and Shanghai, and close to 30% are senior citizens. So close to 30% of the population are senior citizens. Many of these senior citizens, like they don't know how to use WeChat Pay or like Alipay. So Alipay and like WeChat Pay, so because they started only 5 years ago, right? So they're mainly for like millennials and like probably my parents' generation, but like definitely not for like senior citizen. So many of these like senior citizens, so they're actually excluded from this like day-to-day economic activity, and so like they have hard time like just like get access. So I think the original intent of this digital yuan is to make like digital payment like more inclusive. Like say for instance, right now, like the digital yuan, like the payment can be completely offline. So as long as like we have this payment, just like this payment app, this wallet app, just install on my phone, and then even though it's offline, so we can just tap each other, and then so we can finish that. Transaction, and then and then also they don't need like a specific like bank account, etc. Right? So, and I think from convenience like aspect, and it's definitely much more better like for the senior citizen, and then also probably citizen from like tier 3, 4, 5 cities, and then who are relatively like inferior. So like when it comes to like the overall level of like technicality, and then also like their like know-how when it comes to like mobile payment, right? And I think so, but the thing is that once it's launched, and like the launch gonna have like multiple phases, and then I think it will be pretty aggressive, like because they are aiming for 20, I think they're aiming for like 2022.
Right.
Like that's when the Winter Olympics, and so they want to roll out like the whole thing, like even for like foreign exchange, and so because like they're expecting a lot of like foreign visitors. So I think the whole plan is around 2022, and then so it will have a standard rollout. So it's not just it is not just experimental rollout. it will have to compete with Alipay and WeChat Pay to some extent. So it's gonna be the third largest payment method. And then I think like after that standard rollout and the next plan, like the next phase, gonna be make the monetary policy more just a more elasticity. And so like the current way, like because like the PBOC, so the that is the Central Bank of China. So like the PBOC, they have hard time. So they have hard time to directly influence the current monetary policy. And so that's why we have seen a lot of things like things like real estate here has been overheated, and like stock market has been quite a bit like pump and dump scheme here. And then also like the shadow banking industry account for probably 30% of the M2. So like I said, like China is huge. It's relatively decentralized. Local commercial banks, they have like very so they have a lot of like little like so they basically know how to get through all this regulatory like loophole, right? And like the central bank, they have like no transparency like when it comes to overall monetary flow as well. So I think the grand scheme of this digital yuan is to help the central bank, like the PBOC, to centralize their power again, basically to make the M0 great again.
But I think this isn't just nationally, right? This isn't just nationally. Like from my understanding, from what I've been reading in Western media at least, they're saying that the CCP is hoping that the digital yuan will be a successful global currency outside of China as well.
I think that there will be phase 3. And so they will first leverage that for a domestic monetary policy programming. If you want to cool down the stock market, and you can simply write a few lines of code and then just to start the cash flow over there, right? And it will, like, for the first time, central banker gonna have direct inference. Because previously all the central bankers, so they either have to adjust the interest rate or just the commercial bank reserve currency rate, like things like that. And so like those influence are all just indirect. So for the first time, they can have like direct influence on the day-to-day economic activity. And so that's gonna be pretty powerful. That is at phase 2. And I think phase 3 gonna be the internet. So just to be the globalization of yuan, and because like China will have a better like a geo influence, like so say for instance along the One Belt One Road like area, right? So with all this partner central bankers, and so previously they have been doing all this interbanking swap. Right. So this interbanking swap is basically if I want to borrow your money, and then so I don't actually borrow you. So I don't actually borrow the currency from you, and it's just like a balance sheet thing. And so in the future, because there's a lot of like infrastructure investment, both from public sector and private sector from China, and there's many foreign Chinese workers. So like there's a demand for RMB or like yuan just naturally, and so because there's like a natural demand, and like there will be a very easy channel like just to feeding this like digital yuan program, and then because it will be a relationship between central bankers, so like the whole thing gonna be pretty smooth. So I think when it comes to globalization, so that's from that perspective. So yeah, so if you're like an African businessman, so you don't need to have like a Chinese bank account, but like you can still transact with local Chinese worker, things like that.
Yeah, but it's not only that, right? Because I've been reading into it, and I know that China's been making huge investments into emerging markets like Southeast Asia and Africa. Obviously, those markets unfortunately represent where many of the unbanked population lives. Obviously, with this forthcoming, but then exactly right. But then with this forthcoming digital yuan that we know is coming, Do you think that those investments are ultimately a tactic to get those emerging nations on board with the digital yuan?
When it comes to unbank, and so I think unbank, like, so most of the use cases, like, so first of all, you need to have a access to the local, either like post machine or like whatever endpoint that you have that can connect to the local, like that can connect to the local economy. So it is not simple as, so you basically need to have liquidity, right? Yes, and here is the digital currency, like digital yuan whatsoever, but you need that yuan to have the local liquidity first. If you don't have the local liquidity of that currency, you're not going to help like both the bank and the unbank. So and I think like the prerequisite of launching out the digital yuan there is yuan needs to have the local liquidity. So either from day-to-day economic activity or from whatever type of like transaction there, like, which means that there needs to be a supply and demand. Like the demand can come from Chinese workers and things like that, or like or probably local Chinese merchant, and like the supply has to come from somewhere else. So without liquidity, and people cannot use yuan for anything there, so like there's no point. So I think when it comes to the globalization, they definitely first so they will definitely first like try it out at the area where like there's already enough like local liquidity of the yuan itself, because it's a replacement of the cash, right?
So which areas are those then? I think there's 39 million Chinese living abroad at the moment. So like, where are those areas you think would be the next after China?
Yeah, so I think the next step is it has to be somewhere like the local currency is like the local fiat currency, like the domestic fiat currency has no a strong presence, because yuan as a fiat currency has a better credit. So like for like most of these African countries, I would say, because like there's like good enough like Chinese like investments there, and then Chinese local and like foreign, and as well as like foreign like Chinese workers there. So there's like good enough like demand, and then like also the local, and then also its local fiat currency is relatively inferior, because fiat currency is also a credit-based currency, right? And like the credit comes from like whoever, like whichever the government issue it. So if like if people trust the Chinese government will have a better credibility with comparing with its local, like comparing with its local government, say for instance, like Zimbabwe, right? And so like it's naturally they will flow to a better like that better currency. So I think you need to, yeah, right.
Yeah, right. So is there anything that like, Bitcoiners can do or are doing like in China to kind of inform the kind of unknowing public that the digital yuan is actually nothing like Bitcoin at all?
So I think if you're already like crypto, just like if you're already in crypto, or if you have if you have a decent understanding about Bitcoin, and then I think there's no way for me to educate you, right? And then if you're a senior citizen, and I think I think so. Say for instance, for my like grandparents, and so I don't want to educate them about Bitcoin, and so they don't have to, because like they're already at the stage of their life. It is not about development. So it's about being secure and like being just like, so it's about insurance, right? And so I think for most of the average or like under average or like lower middle class, I would consider like lower middle class like Chinese citizen, like their like primary goal of their life is to try to be more efficient of their like day-to-day economic activity, and then try to reduce the friction. And I think it's actually great. Like digital yuan for them is actually great. Like just like WeChat Pay and like Alipay. And I think if you are a So like if you're someone, and then so if you understand like the drawdown of all our fiat currency system, and then so if you want, and if you have like actual, if you have like good enough like actual property, or just like individual wealth, and other than feeding your family, etc., because we still have to feed our family by fiat, right? And then apart from that, and you still want to being additional secure of your personal wealth. And I think like that is our target audience. Like that is our target audience here. So here back in China, that the digital yuan like it is like a double-sided sword. And then so just on one hand, so it can offer you like ultimate like convenience, and on the other hand, so you're gonna trading your like complete like financial privacy and like digital footprint, etc. And then so it's not censorship resistant, it's not seizure resistant, and like they can think, so like the CCP can simply wipe you out, like you will be basically sentenced to death, like being an economic and financial individual easily. So I think that is our target audience, and if we really want to rally the concept out, but it's kind of hard to do here, like because of the reason that we all know, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a great event starting in 2 days' time, right? Shanghai Blockchain Week. Are you heading to Shanghai Blockchain Week?
So I'm heading to Shanghai just coming week. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Hopefully soon, we can do that as well here in the West. I'm looking forward to that, to these virtual events.
Yeah. So it's hard to do all this big gathering, I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, so like let's fast forward to kind of today's date. And we recently saw the kind of news story about the OK Group founder that got arrested. I think his name's Stars Yu. Obviously they stopped withdrawals. And apart from that, his arrest, I haven't heard anything apart from that story that's happened since then. So I'm wondering if you have any insight from like local market sources as to like what happened there, and any addition to the story that we don't know about.
Right. And so all these exchanges, and is like, so the risk of running in crypto exchanges here in China is never about the crypto trading itself. It's about the fiat on ramp and the off ramp. So I think, as we all know, like since the 2017 like ICO and like crypto ban, China also bans the fiat on ramp, like the official fiat channel, right? So everything right now is kind of peer-to-peer, but all these exchanges, like they facilitate things in a relatively centralized manner. So they have this OTC platform, like where me as an individual, we can trade. So I can trade with my counterparty, like usually who are also an individual, with like renminbi. So like I think like that is like the root cause of like this this case, and so it seems that OKEX, and so for the OTC group, so like basically there's like, I think there might be some black money involved, and like it's a huge amount of like black money involved, and so black money involved when it comes to the OTC trades, and so it is not the it is not the OKEX that launder money itself. It's just like someone leveraged the matchmaking platform facilitated by OKEX and launder money. And I think that's so I knew it might be related. So it might be related to a few certain cases. So like what's considered, and like just like the amount involved is pretty significant. So that's why the local police and like the local regulatory body had some very strong action against it. So that's why it is not just the OKES case, and I think it's just the OKES case is big enough that surveys onto the global crypto community. I think probably since like 2 months ago or 2 to 3 months ago, there's a lot of this either arrest or just please keep some of this key OTC person under custody. And say for instance like Zhao Dong, I'm not sure you know like Zhao Dong, like he is one of the biggest, so he's among the biggest like OTC offering like the figures like here in Chinese crypto market, and then like he has been arrested as well. It's just like Western community, probably not a lot of people like know about him, but like I think he has been arrested like since May. Yeah, and so it's like a series of action, but the OK one is just big enough that make a splash, right?
Right. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, look, let's jump into DeFi, which I know is one of your favorite subjects. So, yeah, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that DeFi can like ever gain mass adoption for those who are not crypto native? Because right now, even I find it difficult occasionally to liquidity mine and was impermanent loss. And what are your thoughts there?
Right. So I think for now it's just so there's a Chinese term as 自嗨, basically means that industry insider like entertained by themselves. So I think that's like a typical like DeFi moment. So I think like DeFi, so especially like this time, right? Like DeFi is not a new thing. Like when I invested in Kyber, like back in 2013, so back in 2017, and yes, it is. So it is 100% like DeFi from our current like definition, but like it has been around for quite some time, right? Like Augur, what I consider also as DeFi, has been around for like 5 years, and I think like Bitcoin itself is the biggest. It is the biggest DeFi platform ever since, right? And then money is its application. So I think the whole industry just built on top of this like DeFi philosophy or this like DeFi mindset, and like this time probably gonna be renaissance of DeFi, and like thanks to all this like farming program and liquidity mining, quote unquote. And also liquidity mining is not a new thing. Like in 2013, and so I think especially for many of these Chinese crypto native, and we have been through the liquidity mining program like offered by all the centralized exchanges, and then so the playbook is exactly the same, right? So like back in 2018 is like wash trading. So because it's like transfer mining, right? And so like basically like the more we trade and like the more platform token that we can get, right? Like even the playbook is the same. So for all this liquidity mining program is about proof of capital, and you basically put your capital at work, right?
Right.
So like it is a incentive program design and is a growth hacking. It is a growth hacking for adoption and for getting capital. So like to just like gaining liquidity in order to like bootstrap with. And so whenever there's a hype, and so there's always come together with a tremendous like wealth generation. And I think that's why this time DeFi drives a lot of people crazy. So because if you think about from compound to from all the way from compound to Y earn, like Y earn simply print over a billion fair market value wealth like out of nowhere within a week, right? Just if you think about the speed, and so that would definitely drive people FOMO, and the overall fundamental based investment will definitely drive bubble, and like every cycle is the same. And like the last time, the transfer mining is also the same, and started by Avcoin, and then later Avcoin collapsed, and so I think like this time, like the good thing about this like DeFi renaissance this time is, and thanks to Uniswap and many other like infrastructure. And I think like this time people at least like have to learn like how to use all this like DeFi infrastructure, and then like actually learn how to interact with all this and how to interact with this so all these money logos, and like they have a better understanding about, okay, we actually have our own decentralized central banker like this and MakerDAO, and then together we have all these like commercial bank alike like kind of like components like Compound, Aave, etc. And then also it leads to great competition, and which gonna be good for the end users. And so we have seen all the swaps, and like even though it's not like, I wouldn't say it's a very healthy competition, especially for the whole sushi saga, and so I wouldn't say it's a completely healthy competition, but like competition will lead to survival for the fittest, right? And I think it is definitely a net positive for the industry, and it's just the path can be brutal, and then so it's just like playing poker, and if you don't know the role, and then so you will be 100% be the sucker. You might have some beginner's luck, but like if you want to keep playing, and so you will be the sucker. And so if you don't know the role well, and I think also it has a very positive effect to educate a lot of what I consider as what I consider as crypto users, but not true coiner. So they have all their asset in the centralized exchanges or like in some third parties custody, and so it's a great education for them, and then also expose many of the disadvantage of like this like quote unquote crypto bank and like crypto financial institution. So I think many of these like crypto users and turn to a true coiner for the first time, and I think that's great. And so you can see the Ethereum balance from the centralized exchanges actually goes down quite dramatically, and then I think actually the Ethereum balance on the smart contract has been surpassed the balance in all these like crypto banks like since September. Yeah, so I think that's actually great.
Yeah. So like, what do you think we've learned then? I mean, obviously the market's really heated up in the last few months with, DeFi projects, prices booming. Now we've seen them kind of crash back down again. Like, what do you think like the next kind of cycle for DeFi will learn from what we've just been through?
I think the next cycle of the DeFi, and from the project founders side, and they will learn simply print reward out of thin air, like not gonna be a good retention mechanism. So they need to have a good utility first. And so they need to be very orthogonal when it comes to the product offering and like service offering. And then has to be at some dimension like 10x better for like the existing from the existing like services. So I think gonna be a healthier competition towards like good product design and like good like product utility. And it's not just like keep printing all this like just like vaporware and try to like pump the yield. And and so like that's one thing. And like second is, and I think many of these founders like gonna think about like what's really about governance and like what's really about governance token distribution. And because we have seen a lot of failure of this governance like recently, like what's funny is like the first proposal from like the Uniswap governance is try to reduce the threshold and like the quorum, and but like the whole proposal was defeated because like there's no threshold, like because like it cannot meet the threshold. So it's basically like a dead end, right? So I think there will be a lot more like methodical consideration when it comes to what's the good voting mechanism and like what's the good governance mechanism. And and that will lead to like that will definitely lead to the next like a DeFi like that will lead to the next like a DeFi spring, right? and I think also like the project with like good utility, like gonna stay strong, and then we can see Aave and like Compound and Maker and all these good projects, and not just DeFi bandwagon project, and all this a solid project that has been around in the space and has done building, and they will just keep building, right? And we will wash out all this at tourists, and like that's good as well. Yeah. So like the next DeFi, and so I expect to see just like something, so I expect to see something, so probably around the optimization about just like the gas optimization, and then also DeFi on the layer 2, and so like that's, so I think like that's already evolving, and then also like different is like different kind of automated, so like different kind of automated market maker, and because like the current simple like this simple AMM algorithm like gonna lead to impermanent loss, and at like a pretty great scale, like especially for those especially for like long tail asset, because it does not have like good enough. It basically does not have like good enough. So it does not have good enough liquidity, and then also like the trading pair is not positive like correlated as well. So I think there will be a lot of like improvement around that as well. Basically make the transaction cheaper, like just like cheaper in all aspects. Yeah.
Yeah. So has there been any like you mentioned that like printing money out of thin air like isn't going to be sustainable? Like, is there any kind of new DeFi projects that have like a really like different technical design that you've particularly liked the look of?
So first of all, like you don't need to offer that liquidity mining program at all, right? So many of this DeFi program like Maker and I think like Aave, like just like it is not a necessity. And so if you as a new project, like if you want to, so like if you want to leverage that as a token distribution mechanism, and like that's just one option, but like you don't have to. It's definitely not necessity. And then I have seen a lot of like different different token distribution mechanism design as well. Like say for instance, it will require you to it will require a certain wallet addresses to, so like prior to a certain block height, so you will have to interact with like specific like contract. So it's kind of like an on-chain KYC. Like think about that, right? So if you want to prove your just like savviness, or if you want to prove your like deep involvement in the DeFi space, and it will actually require you to have a contract interaction, like say for instance with the Wi-Fi governance voting contract, like prior to like block height like XYZ. So like all this mechanism will make the token distribution like much more sophisticated, and it is not just a simple farming or like mining program, like a completely proof of like capital proportional to your stake. So it can be much more sophisticated, and so it really depends on what type of what type of like users that you want to target, and then who are willing to participate in your future governance. And so that is actually case by case.
And what about you? Obviously, as founding partner of Primitive Ventures, are you as a VC looking into DeFi projects to actively invest in, or is it more of a hobbyist?
Yeah, and we have been actively farming, and so we farm like Compound. So because it's the same playbook, like I said, so like why not, right? So it's a proof of capital. So if you have good enough like capital, you basically put your capital at work. It's free money. So so we have been farming Compound, like Wi-Fi, and then Wi-Fi 2, and then like Shushi Uni, like whatsoever. So I think like it's a great token like distribution mechanism, like, and also it's much better comparing with like the 2017 like pre-sale type of investment scheme, right? And especially good for the future governance. And because no one gonna trust a VC coin, because a VC can simply just say, VC can simply just say have the entire say when it comes to any just say voting mechanism, and then also it's just so it will become just a like governance like theater, and so I think it's much better than like the 2017 like all these layers of like pre-sale, because like there's no information symmetry. At least here we have much better information symmetry, and like we have done investments such as in like Dodo, and which is a new kind of like DEX, and so it has a complete different automatic market making algorithm, and we have been investing a few other projects and which are in stealth mode as well. So I think like for us, and because DeFi is proof, so it's proof of capital, like I said, and so you basically need to optimize your like capital utilization. So the important thing for us is to have a good estimation and like calculation on. So right now farming, like you basically can't rely on the instant APY, because like first of all, like that's not sustainable, and then second, and like secondly, so like the assumption of this like real-time APY is you have to basically farm and dump, right? And I think so for us as a like a relatively like long-term investor of the industry, and then we want to have a good value judgment of all this like useless governance token and which can be useful in the future. So I think the value judgment is more important than just like simply just like farm and dump.
I really want to know, like, kind of what the kind of Chinese kind of, government, like, kind of opinion is on decentralized finance. Obviously, true decentralized finance, they're not going to be very happy about, I'm sure. But like, how do they kind of approach that in terms of like trying to make DeFi almost CeFi? Like, how are they kind of entering into the DeFi space for the kind of Chinese market?
You mean wait? So your question is like how, like what's the reaction of Chinese governments towards DeFi?
Yeah, and like how are they kind of looking to adapt kind of DeFi, to make it kind of compliant to their kind of system?
I think the regulators, they're just indifferent for now, because like the whole DeFi presence is very minimal here. Like the Chinese retailer, like just all the Chinese retail investors, and they're very spoiled by this all these centralized exchanges who will be okay, etc. And so I think that's also the reason that we haven't seen like good adoption or like good just like good like blossom of the whole DeFi movement happening at the same level here in China. So yeah, so I think it's nothing. So it's just like nothing's like just like nothing major, both for the industry players here and then as well as for the regulators. And yeah, because like the crypto banks power, like the exchanges, wallets, and then other like the crypto lending facility, etc. So like they're much more influential here, and then most of them, so all of them, they're just CeFi, and then so I think their only recent development when it comes to DeFi is they offer to their retail users, this aggregators, like all these aggregators access to DeFi farming. Like basically they will farm on behalf of their retail users, and like that's it.
Got it. Okay, cool. So look, we've only got a few minutes left. Unfortunately, I really enjoyed our chat, Dovey. But let's look into the future. I think you're definitely a visionary. So like let's pretend we're 10 years into the future. I know it's difficult. 10 years is a long time. But what does the world of crypto blockchain technology look like in your minds?
So can you repeat that question? Like in 10 years, what?
In 10 years' time, what does the world look like in terms of the utilization of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology in your best kind of guess right now?
I think in 10 years, and basically the Gen Z, I think Gen Z will be 18, 20, right? So like, so for their generation, like cryptocurrency is their like native, like very native thing, right? And so yeah, so I think like the adoption gonna be much more like much more massive, and like much more massive adoptions, and also I think the trust towards fiat currency, just US dollar or like RMB, so will be weakened, like because of like because of like the unlimited monetary expansion, especially in the coming 10 years. And so I don't have a very optimistic view towards that. So like of how US dollar can basically uphold its global trust in general. So I think more and more individual gonna seek for that plan B. So the awareness of Bitcoin as an alternative, and so it will be much more, like Bitcoin is already a household name, to be honest, like especially in the I think especially in the developed nations. And I think in China, like Bitcoin is also a household name. It's just that it has it's a reputation in general due to the history and due to the like the adversary promotion from the central government. It has not a really good reputation. But I think like over time, when the capital control become more and more tightened, and then people need to seek a way out, and then they will also turn to Bitcoin and like cryptocurrency. So I think all these forces like driving together, and we will see a much more massive adoption, and we will have a lot of like positive drivers, like from the institutions such as Fidelity and from like Grayscale, and so like those will help from like top down, just moving the whole thing forward. And then like there's also this very interesting power struggle dynamics that anything China bans, American gonna push for it, and then anything American bans and like China gonna push for it. So I think there's no way that like all the central bankers and like all the sovereign governments can unite together and like clamp down like our industry in general. It's like that's just impossible. We can always seek a way out. We can go to Singapore and then go to any other like crypto-friendly nation, and so like there's always a room for this like decentralized economic system like to survive and thrive. So I'm extremely optimistic for the future, and then so I think we are living in this great parallel universe, and can just like see the outside world burn, and which is great. Like long Bitcoin, short the world, and so that's our internal like motto.
And what a great way to sign off this fireside chat. Long Bitcoin, short the world. Final question, Dovey, which we're asking all of our guests, is, as you know, this BlockDown is a special Halloween edition. So please, can you share with us your crypto horror story, or crypto horror moment that you've had since you joined the industry?
Yeah, like the first one gonna be like the Mount Gods, and like luckily I don't have a lot of so I don't have like majority of my asset over there, and so it's still like sit in my cold wallet. But that's the first moment when I think, oh holy shit, like the whole thing gonna just collapse and go back to zero. And like the second horror moment is pretty recent, like that is the Black Thursday, and it's like a it's like a deja vu, and it's the second time in so many years, and I had the same level of like just like scariness and similar to like mangas, and I thought the whole thing gonna go back to zero, like if we don't. So if like BitMax didn't stop, just like stop trading, and I really think gonna go down to sub 1,000. Yeah, seriously. So because it's like one of the the craziest liquidity crunch that I have ever seen, which is crazy. So, and I think the other horror moments, and I don't have those I don't have like good, because I'm very paranoid when it comes to like operational security. So I don't have a lot of horror moments, like say for instance, like private key got stolen or things like that, or like being blackmailed by hackers, things like that. So I don't have those. So I definitely try to sharpen your like OPSAT skill, and like that will help you a lot. Like that will help you avoid those nightmares.
Perfect. Okay, Dovey, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I think that was a fascinating insight into all things China, DeFi, the future of crypto. I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot. So yeah, thanks so much for your time today, and hopefully we'll see you at the next edition of BlockDown.
Yeah, hopefully in person, like in the meet space.
For sure. Okay, thanks, Dovey. See you next time.
Yeah, see ya.